Yeah, let's start. Um, so, like Simran said, I've been in the business for quite long. I studied graphic design when graphic design was not a thing. So 86, 87 is when I joined NID, and eventually I started working in a print design firm, then moved to what they call technology at the point of time, which is multimedia CD-ROMs. Started doing basic websites in HTML. Moved to doing what they call as UX now, which is actually creating products of sort. Started my own company which does brand and UX together. Sold it to WPP and was integrated with Ogilvy for 3 years. Headed the digital for Ogilvy. I mean, so I wasn't the creative director for Ogilvy in general. That Piyush will kill me, but I was the digital head for digital, specifically UX, right? And further on, I headed this company called Brand Union, which is a pretty large branding firm. And I was the digital head of APAC. And last year in August, I decided that I would rather work closely with startups, venture capital, and take a lot of free time for myself. And so decided to kind of ease down and started to. So what we are talking about, what I'm going to talk about today is, okay, let me actually, what I'm going to talk about today is the experience of a connected brand. Like if you actually take a brand, nothing can be done in a silo. None of the stuff, even if you're doing a banner, one page, something in the brand assets of sort. I want to illustrate why I'm saying that at some point in time. So how am I going to illustrate it? I'm going to illustrate it by doing a few things. One is that I'm going to talk about my journey, like how the stuff went and what I learned in all these years, and so that's the learnings. And then we're going to talk about the idea of brand, UX, marketing, and then we'll talk about how they are all supposed to be connected and how we cannot look at anything as a silo and look at things always be connected to a larger brand asset set that you're actually designing for a firm. How many of you are designers? How many of you are just resellers of services? Designers? Okay, resellers. Okay, that's a, and resellers? Oh, that we are going like 50%. That's great. That's great. So there is probably stuff for both. You guys can ask questions at the end of it, and I'll try and clarify as much as possible over time. So today, if you actually look at the larger thought of UX, I mean, call it whatever may, web design, UX, anything that interaction design, whatever you may call it, it's at a strange position today. I mean, there are lots of questions being asked about the idea and the practice called as user experience design. And whether you design a banner, a button, a piece of brand campaign, you can today call yourself a UX designer, which is very unfortunate. It shouldn't be like that. So I also want to illustrate that you can never design anything in isolation. It's got to be connected, like I said earlier. And like I said earlier, I studied in NID in times when I had to actually book time to get computer. So, you can actually book an hour in Mac, and what you do is when you actually book the hour in Mac, you go set your type. It's like using it like a phototype setting machine. So you set your type, take a photo printout, come and cut it up and do your artwork, right? It's nothing visible in it at all. What you see is not what you get. You kind of imagine that it will look like this, assemble it together, and hopefully it will come out the way you thought about it, right? So that's the way things were at that point of time, right? So I joined a company called as Ray and Keshwan Design. It used to be a pretty large. Incidentally, it became Brand Union. WPP bought Ray and Keshwan Design. So my first job and the last job are the same company. So I used to work in a company called Ray and Keshwan Design. 3 things that I learned a lot is rigor, diligence, and what you do as a craft, right? Because unlike digital, once you get something printed, you're doomed. So you can't afford to make anything wrong. A photograph that is not printed right, a spelling mistake, error in leading, all that stuff had to be taken care of way better than what we can. So today, I keep saying, what is the client jumping up and down about? I can go and change it in no time. You cannot change it at that point of time, right? We couldn't change it. So the idea of diligence is something that we had to have. We had to actually be diligent about what we do. And I keep saying that that is probably something that is missing today with the excuse of sounding old, I would say that's missing today, right? I think the stuff is that when you actually put the entire print piece together, you are forced to do a set of things, right? Like to start with, we had to actually work with the client. We got to actually put an estimate together, write the proposal. It's a boutique company. We were like 4 of us running the firm together. We had to really put the estimation together, proposal, client servicing, project management, design, pre-production, so understand production details and be good with it, supervision, and eventually delivery. I mean, actually, I've done stuff like carried 300 brochures and delivered it personally to the client, and that's how things worked at that point of time. But things changed, right? So this is still 1998, I used to work in this company. Then I moved from there to a company called as Netcraft. And first time I was kind of introduced to something that is outside the realm called technology. Other than the Adobes and the Aldus PageMaker that we used to use at that point of time, that only technology that we came into stuff was desktop publishing, right? But here, it was a little more. Here, we were introduced to stuff that can build things for you and not necessarily your hand. This is eventually when Macromedia started thinking about like how can you put WYSIWYG HTML editors that can assemble stuff like Dreamweaver, and eventually Adobe bought all of them. But the point is that's exactly what this time was about. So the ability to collaborate, teamwork, process and compliance were very, very important, and that learning is something that we had to take on. So ability to kind of work with multiple, there were technologists, there were people who wrote content, there were people who actually made pictures, there were people who actually designed the stuff and put it together, and there were people who developed it into something that is worthwhile, and you had to actually work with all of them and eventually get something worthwhile. So we further had this entire stuff of working with business, technology and design to actually have some innovative ideas that can come up with. Business always came up with the idea of the domain expertise, right? They constantly question the idea of, do you need to really do it? Do I need to sink in money in it, right? Technology constantly said, can we actually put this together using technology? So if I actually think about business was about viability. It's about ability to get the bang for the buck. You put the money in, do I get enough returns out of it? Technology constantly questioned the idea of, does it perform well? Does it come together well? Can it work well, right? So it's about performance and feasibility, and design was about brand and usability. So when all of these come together is what? So that's something that we learned over these two periods, which is 2003 to 2013 when I ran my own company, which was about largely brand and UX, right? What I'm going to do is like seamlessly move in and out of some of the work that we have done during time. Some of them are going to look very dated because they are dated. They are very old. So like let's take a quick look at one of the early projects that we did in 2000. I think this is late 2010 because iPad had just about come in 2010 April, and we were actually working on a whole bunch of stuff towards iPad and iPad mini, which was going to come in later during that time. This is an ERP solution. I don't want to spend too much time on it. This is an ERP solution for chain schools, like Kangaroo Kids kind of a chain school. So they can, you can do all that stuff that you see on the screen by using this ERP, which essentially means you can do enrollment, you can do billing, you can do right down till attendance, which is what you see in the last screen right here, where you can do class attendance and stuff like that. All this gets collated and goes up to one dashboard that the management can see in a centralized place. That is, the product is not ours, but we worked on the entire UX of it. So further on, anyway, I'm not getting into details of it. This is one such product that we worked on. This is an interesting another project that we worked on, which is for a US client where it's about moving houses. If you actually move from one place to another place, so they called us and said that We are a firm which is into logistics. We actually help people move from one place to the other. We have a set of videos that are interesting to, to illustrate how you can pack stuff, right? So can you put it up in an app? But we said, like, listen, the app can do way better than that. I mean, that's something that you can put it up in, I don't know whether Dropbox was there at that time, but you can put it up in Dropbox and send a link to the client, you're done, but this can do way better than that. So one of the stuff that we said was that let's help the people move in a certain way. Like one of the big pains that we have in packing is about the boxes and ability to put things into the boxes and name and label it and all that nonsense, right? So we actually try to solve that problem. So if you actually look at this screen, you can actually open a box and name it, right? You can take pictures of stuff that you're packing in it and, put it in the box, so you will know that. Eventually, once that thing is done, the entire box's output comes as a QR code which you can paste on the side of the box, which is password protected. So on the other side, you can actually read what is there in the box without opening the box with pictures and stuff like that. And that's what this product was about. So it is a standalone product, did really well. It actually went out. This is a promotional stuff by the logistics company, but people started downloading it even otherwise because it was a great product. And so we are proud of this. We were proud of the thought that the idea, the core idea came from us, other than actually having that set of videos which we already have in that stuff. We just had one, place called resources and threw all the videos in. Not that we had anything to do with that. So that's what this product is about. I mean, this was eventually done for iPhone and iPad. You can see the old iPhone there. In 2013, we became a full-service digital strategy and design firm. I think we had substantially good and unwavering focus on brand and specifically the user. So we did research, we did immersion, we did ability to bring the stuff together and define the product, which is like feature functionality list, and say that this is what the product should be doing, like the one which you saw just earlier, and eventually pack the UX together and got the technology done. We didn't have technology, not for everything, but got the technology done from outside. So like that, we did quite a few projects and products, and we got acquired by Ogilvy and integrated with Ogilvy worldwide in 2013. Ogilvy was a different stuff altogether, right? Like Ogilvy is like a university. People in marketing kind of go into Ogilvy and come out on the other side. Like everybody wants to spend 6 to 8 months to a year and a half in Ogilvy so that they can learn things. And then that is a learning ground. It's a fantastic learning ground. It's probably where ability of thinking strategically in terms of marketing, ability to kind of put stuff together in an interesting way, creatively, so that the communication works hard for a business. And they had processes, they had styles, and all that defined earlier and very well. So I actually eventually went on to work on quite a few of these projects in Ogilvy, which is probably in UX and digital marketing largely. And I worked with Lenovo, IBM, Caterpillar, Amazon, Kindle, Audible. Most of these are not necessarily India clients, they are worldwide clients, and we were also working on the stuff because we were integrated into the worldwide clientele like that. IBM was personally my biggest client because I was a creative director for IBM specifically. So everything that was done for IBM at that point of time in and around India and APAC, I was working on that. Right. Some of the stuff that we did was this. Content marketing was a new term at that point of time. You guys would have heard this being thrown around quite a bit, and I mean, people have various thoughts about whether it succeeded or failed even today, but the larger thought was content marketing is something that will engage users. The ability to kind of share videos. I mean, even today, if you use your Facebook, you see more content than what friends are doing, right? So the ability to share videos, ability to kind of take content from one another place and sharing it, and brands wanted to do it. And we helped IBM start this entire platform called India Onward for content marketing online, which was actually delivered as a phone app and also as a website, right? And we also did one interesting thing called as interesting thing for Lenovo. This is specifically for Lenovo, where they used to actually print price lists, about 35,000 copies of a price list in Europe, and send it. So if they had one price of one of the stuff changed, they had to reprint it again. So And I don't know, I mean, not that it was anything fantastic, but I don't know why they never thought of doing it digitally, right? Probably because nobody kind of was ready to assimilate all this stuff and give them a content management system at the back that easily controlled this thing well. We did that, and we actually created a set of apps for the dealer, which also had storytelling where you can actually talk about a specific product using the app. So you take the iPad and you can do a slideshow and also see prices for every possible thing real time. Like today, if the price changes, it's up and ready, and in your currency, depending on where you are in Europe, and ready and up. And we help them save a lot of money in that printing and shipping and all that stuff of the product. That's what this product is all about. So one of the stuff that I realized and learned during this is that the product, right, when the center part is the during part is actually the product itself, right. There is, if you actually look at yourself running a product or a service, that is right in the middle. So you got to acquire users for this product, which is before, and you got to retain the users in some way, which is after. So that's the stuff of actually moving from making the users aware that the product like that exists, acquiring them in some way, making them discover what is available in the product, and giving them a set of choices, fulfilling what they wanted, and of course retaining them over time. So if you actually look at the awareness and acquisition, it's about brand, it's about marketing, it's about communication, kind of feeding into sales in some way, right? Like that's what the first part is about. The second main thing, which is the user experience part, is the user research, ability to define the product and service well, and the user experience design itself, which falls right in the middle. And then the user retention is about customer relationship, loyalty program design, stickiness features, and so on. So when actually people say user experience design, they kind of focus hard on the central part, which is inside and within the product. And I think they should start looking at the before and after that too. How do you acquire users? How do you engage the users? And how do you keep them for a long time? How do you make it sticky so that people come back? That's something that I learned in Ogilvy, because I was actually looking at only the center. Right? This is about communication, this is about brand communication, and how do you acquire them and how do you keep them, is what was a great learning from Ogilvy. So one of the questions that used to really kill us in Ogilvy, especially me, considering that I was heading digital, people on the corridor used to come and ask me, like, so what the hell is digital, right? So, and I used to have difficulty in defining what it was, because Wikipedia is again a bunch of lists. This is what Wikipedia says. It says everything from websites, email, apps, and social networks. It's a list. It's not a framework thinking. It's not being, I can't really fathom what the height and width of it. So I actually took a cut at defining what digital marketing is all about in some way, and how can we actually connect all the pieces so that we can make and create a good digital marketing strategy for a given company, which we have used before. So to start with, we actually started thinking about some channels in digital. So this is something it will be good if you guys focus on, because there is a video case study that I'll present right after, which kind of connects to this story, right? To start with, let's look at the channels that we know, that we understand in digital marketing itself, right? Like we've got web. I'm just making it convenient. I'm just looking at the channels which are there. You can add your own channels later. You could probably put VR, AR, IoT, AI, all that, line up those things after, but I'm saying let's look at the basics, right? There's web. When I say web, I'm talking about everything to do with web content. It's like the kind of sites that you sell. It's like the images and videos that we create and put it in those sites, right? There is e-commerce. E-commerce is, it is a website, but it does more than what it is, right? It's not content. It actually starts selling things more than what it should. Then there is mobile. Mobile, it's because it's a device. Unfortunately or fortunately, the mobile has become you, right? In the sense, it's almost like an identity of what you are. Wherever you go, you got to give your mobile number first so that it's identified in the right way. So it's a small, portable, easily connectable device which represents an individual, and how do you engage with that as the mobile part. And then there is social, which is big now. Everybody is talking on social. Things move. Probably it used to be Facebook, it used to be Twitter, now it's become Instagram, it's become Snap, right? But social lives. I mean, we somehow want to talk to everybody, sometimes meaninglessly, but we want to talk constantly and share stuff in a central place. That's social media. And the last one is advertising. Advertising is probably in the digital realm of it is about banners, mailers, those kind of stuff that we send out, which is still called advertising. It's no different from what was there before. Now, keep this in mind. Keep this in mind. Just hold this in mind. I'm going to talk about different set of things which are probably the asset types, right? Like we thought there are three kinds of asset types that exist, right? There is like the bottommost stuff that is there is like the core brand assets. Like it is like any brand cannot live without it. Like your website. If you today there is no brand without a website or a business or a service. You know, every brand and a business and a service has a website, and the website runs for very, very long. Most often they have a social media page. They have a profile in Twitter, profile in LinkedIn, or profile in Facebook, or a page in Facebook. So that is the bottommost part. Those are the core brand assets. The one above that is called gateways. The gateways are pages that help you reach that stuff, help you reach the core brand assets in some way. So it's like a gate. You open it a little bit, you allow people to get into that. Then on top of that is campaigns. So if you actually look at the user right on top of that, user will hopefully see the campaign, click on some part, go to the gateway page, read about something, and click on that to go to the core brand asset page. That's the way most of the journey happens, really. And if you actually look at the effectiveness of the time and effectiveness, if you actually look at the bottom, it's how long does it need to be there. Like a website is forever, right? I mean, once you do that, you might change it, you might design it again, but as an asset that exists forever. It's once you start, it exists forever. So I think that is something that you got to keep in mind. It's a long-term piece. The gateway is seasonal. Like you might, like a e-commerce website might do something that is specific to holidays, specific to Diwali. So they might do a small gateway page or a gateway set of stuff that is only specific to Diwali, and that's a gateway page typically. Or a B2B page, B2B website or a B2B product company could do something that is specifically for chief marketing officers, right? Or this, the reseller club calling you guys specifically is also like a gateway. It's like a small gateway to actually get to the core assets at the bottom. Then there is the campaigns. The campaigns are again seasonal, strong bursts. So you will actually do X number of campaigns over a period of time, and typically in a year there are like 5 or 6 campaigns if it is a large brand and a good budget for advertising. And from the campaign, you actually have this thing called as call to action, which is CTA. Click on that, you will jump to the gateway page. Click on something specific, you will hopefully jump to the core asset, and that's the method in which the user journey happens. So let's look at the channels that we had before very quickly, right? And then let's look at the assets. And what I tried to do was take that and this and put it one on top of the other. So if I actually look at the assets on the left hand side and the channels at the bottom, this is what happens. So in core brand assets, you have brand content. It's like your corporate brand website, product or services microsite. In e-commerce, you have your online store itself. If you have a store, that store works at the bottom. If it's mobile, the basic responsive idea works at the bottom. Social is social assets, which is like your blogs, your fan pages, your profile pages, all that works at the bottom, right? In advertising, unfortunately, there is nothing which is the core asset really, only campaigns work in advertising. Then if you go to the gateways, in web there are microsites, there are shop and shop in e-commerce, there are apps which are native apps and web apps that are created in mobile, and there is social conversations and that are put together, like community forming, right? In social, that's what happens in social, right? If you go right up onto campaigns, there is a mobile idea, there is social engagement, ads, mailers, and SEOs. So mobile idea for mobile, of course, you can have a smart idea about send your selfie and it can be whatever, win a prize kind of a stuff. That's a campaign probably you will run. Social engagement is like ability to kind of like a kind of a tagging drive that people do. That is a kind of a social idea that you can think about. And ads, mailers, and SEOs, you know what I'm talking about. It's like advertisements and search engine optimization and marketing and mailers that people have sent. So given this is the realm of digital marketing, honestly, that we got to be working on. So my team, when the strategists start working on this kind of stuff, I had to give them something to pin onto the softboard so that they can think about the brand and think of all these. So I made a easy ready reckoner, something which is easily printable and pinnable on the wall, which kind of looked like this. It's almost like a small periodic table of sort that that can be easily understood by people, so that if a brand comes and says, listen, I want a digital strategy, you can say, listen, what can we do in social, what can we do in social core, what can we do in social gateways, and what can we do as a campaign in social. So when actually you connect all these stuff, like let's look at a probable user journey, right? Like a user journey would be, I'm browsing on some site and eventually I get a pop-up of a certain offer that is going on an e-commerce site for a specific period of time. I click on that, I go to the gateway page with a bunch of those offers specified. I click on that, I actually go to the e-commerce site with that specific SKU, and I add it on. Hopefully I'm converted, right? That's the connection I'm talking about. That's the entire brand idea that I'm talking about, and that's typically done. So how can we actually support that entire path along with something else that we do in mobile? Can we actually do something in mobile which, as a part of the strategy, that will make this journey easier and more incentivized in some way? Like, can he or she get more stuff if they, like, giving them coupons that are mobile coupons that are specifically can be done in a certain way, like doing a certain thing through a QR code, or like, you know, in some way recognizable somewhere, like that is the large thought of doing this and giving it to guys so that they can pin on the softboard, look at it, and define a digital strategy in a landscape that is opened out like this. There is a line that I drew right in the middle somewhere, and I actually put a whole bunch of guys which are not necessarily online. Like, for example, doing an activation in a mall, you land up in a mall, there are a whole bunch of guys doing activation at any point in time anyway. You know, so there is a brand that is doing, you know, giving out free samples, and while they are giving free samples, is there any way that they can actually bring them back? Like, for example, do a short video eating the sample and then post it back into the web again. If you do post it back, I've caught you, and I will actually take you to the online site in some way and define how I can actually come down to the place where I can buy that, whatever, biscuit, chips, whatever I'm eating, right? So that is the idea of actually connectability. One thing that ties all these together, and which is very different from how we viewed print advertisement at any point of time, is measurement, right? We are constantly measuring when you're in digital. I'm sure today afternoon sometime there's somebody going to talk about data and how you can use data to actually create stuff that are interesting. But the data that you collect is very, very important, and that's something that you got to keep in mind when you're actually thinking digital at all. So I'm going to actually walk you through one of the case studies that I partially worked on this case study. This is a New York-based stuff. I don't know how many people know this product. It's a pasta sauce called Ragu. So this is 5 years back, right? This is a while back. It's been a while, but then it's valid for today's conversation because it's something that where the entire digital marketing landscape is thought about, and people have actually applied thinking on what all can we do if we actually have a problem like this. So if I go back quickly, they actually did something called as they read the social media, found out some key problems that kids have about eating. Based on that, they actually wanted moms to talk to each other, and they created a platform for moms to talk to each other and start publishing stuff as they talk to each other in some way, right? So that's what they did. So what did they do mainly in terms of looking at going back to this framework, right? If you actually look at the framework, the thickest pillar that they worked on is the social pillar, right? Like all of social was utilized pretty strongly. So whether it is an engagement or a conversation or profiles that were done, so across campaign, gateway, and core brand assets, they used the entire social pillar pretty strongly. They did a whole bunch of advertisements. PR is one thing that I haven't actually put in, but I'm considering as an extension of that. So advertisement is big. Print and TV, through which they actually pulled people into participating in the contest in Facebook and ability to, you know, contest for going to New York, right? They also had a microsite and a core website that kind of talked very heavily about the idea of these conversations, or momversations as they call, and video distribution, right? And that's largely how this thing works. So we used to do the reverse of it. Like I'm actually trying to deconstruct it and show you how this works, like see a thing and then see what is there in this, but we used to do the other way of it. So actually a brand comes and talks to us, we used to look at this framework and say what can we do as an idea, or if we get the first idea of sort, what can we use or what can we do in these channels across these kind of assets in using this idea to create a buzz, to get people to kind of come in and convert them for a better business. That's largely what this stuff is. So it's great learning overall. 2016 and 17, I moved to a company called as Brand Union. Incidentally, it's the same company that I started my career with, which is called Reincarnation Design, again acquired by WPP. I moved to Brand Union. So here I understood the intangible aspects of what a brand means, right? Like we worked on some of the biggest kind of tech brands that are known and stuff like that. But the core idea is the intangible of what you feel about a brand. How do you actually feel? Till now, I've actually shown you tactics. This is the conceptual backing behind the brand itself that makes something stronger, right? So aspiration, like what aspirations does a brand have or a business have? Like how do you future-proof a brand in any possible way? How, what and why? There is a fantastic book called Golden Circle by Simon Sinek. Simon Sinek defines on that definition is how, what and why. And why do you guys do the stuff that you do is a question that is answered very nicely and most often answered as a workshop, right? And that's intrinsic for a brand. Any brand, even you guys, if you actually sit together and think about why are we waking up every morning and doing this? That's probably the answer. The world would be a better place if that answer is what that how, what and why is. Then there are values which are about decision principles. If we are actually running a business together, what are the few things that we've got to hold together as values? Like we'll be ethical, we'll be honest, we'll be like a friend, we won't be authoritarian, we'll be authoritative, and so on. Those are values that kind of define how you will react to anything that comes from outside. Those are called as decision principles. Then there is persona. Your business or the brand should feel like a human being, that is humanizing your brand in some way. How do you make it a persona? You can actually take a look at this stuff. There are 12 archetypes. All of us are supposed to be combinations of 12 archetypes really, including like a hero, a comedian, a villain, and so on. There are like 12 different archetypes like that. So a brand you can actually associate with these archetypes and design it in such a way that these are archetypes. Like one fantastic example I can say is like IBM is actually seen as a saint, as an archetype, a sage. It's very, very wise, and it is also somebody who actually kind of looks at the future. It's future looking, right? Like so, IBM is looked at as a sage, like in the technology world, but it looked at as a sage. That is an archetype. So what would you want your brand to look like? Now this is not a tangible piece. Like can you actually take it and put, like tomorrow if I put sage pictures in IBM ads, I'll get killed. But that's not the idea. The idea is that what is the attribute of a brand that makes that brand a sage is something that you've got to keep in mind so that it's there intrinsically in all communications, right? That kind of leads us to positioning, the last one. The position is actually, how do you actually look at the competitive landscape? So what are the competition around you for you as a brand? How do you actually identify the gap which is missing? And how do you fill it up? So what is special about you? So that's largely what the positioning piece is about. This is what I learned in Brand Union largely as the intangible pieces that can be converted into tangible graphic design or tangible design, user experience design that can make something work harder. So the last piece is this. So what am I doing now, right? Like I actually work right now with the company called as Video Volunteers. I do their I'm a consultant for them. I do that. It's an interesting firm. Video Volunteers actually is a firm that is set out in Goa. It's a not-for-profit organization that teaches marginalized society, people in marginalized society, to shoot and edit in video. So which essentially means that people who are human rights violated in Jharkhand or in Kashmir can actually make videos of as evidences and send it. And these guys in turn do a content marketing program that pushes it out to the right people. This is democratizing news. It's actually helping people to share news from within rather than from outside, right? And that's what I kind of work very closely with these guys, because now I'm happy that I'm kind of trying to do some good for the society in some way. I've also created a 50-hour intense UX program, which is there in acadguild.com, and this is an online UX program that people can take, and that's available on acadguild.com. And I also work on some of the apps. I can't talk too much about it. This is slightly stealth mode. I am working on a football app that's happening as we talk, and it's going to go up soon. These are some of the examples that we've done for Rangashankara. Rangashankara is a theatre group, and we are trying to do some interactive posters for them. Actually, some of the posters, you hold your phone against it and it actually comes to life. There are videos that play out, or people do act in the, so we are making interactive posters out of this. These are some of the sets of Rangashankara posters that are happening right now. And last thing is that just simple brand. We've been working on, along with Ether Design, I've been working on Fab Hotels for a while. So we actually been redoing the Fab brand completely to kind of give them a new look and feel and so on. So I want you guys to kind of slow down a little bit. Think about what are the takeaways that you're actually taking out from this, because it's quite a mess, right? I've spoken about a whole bunch of stuff. But let me actually take 3 things out of it and put it in front of you and say today's takeaway is this, right? So if you have not seen all the stuff till now and you see only these next 3 slides, you're home, you're fine. One of the stuff is the 6 pillars of brand. Ability to look at brand as a set of intangible things, and aspiration, purpose, values, audience, persona, and position. If you define these, you have defined your brand. That's number 1. This is the intangible. The second thing is ability to look at a product not as the product user experience alone. It's about looking at user acquisition, experience, and retention as 3 parts, right? That's the second thing that we saw. So if you actually look at the acquisition or the retention, how does digital marketing happen? That's what we saw here, which is ability to kind of look at the entire digital marketing landscape as a grid, and ability to use that strategically to create a campaign that's appropriate for your brand. And that's all I have today. There is one painful thing that is happening to user experience design that I've been provocative and talking about it very openly in a lot of places, right? And then it's important that I talk to you guys also. So what is happening to UX today? UX is actually, it's becoming a catch-all entry point. Anybody and everybody is calling themselves UX designers, right? And then it's kind of probably, it's from untrained professionals to people who have done Coursera courses, and and that's not right. I think that the biggest problem is because that the empathy is lost, that you don't actually feel closer to the user. So and that's a problem. UX is not necessarily for task alone, it's for task and content. So as much as you got to have ability to kind of do a set of things for banking, you got to actually be able to do a magazine online or a magazine stuff like Flipboard with equal ease, which essentially means user experience designers need editorial skill and also need user experience skill or task flow skill, right? So that is missing. Context is king. People forget context. That's why I wanted to zoom you guys up 15 feet or 15,000 feet above what you guys are doing. Like if you actually are given a silo of one page, you design that page, but it's important for you to understand the larger context of what is happening around it. The environment, the system, and the page that you're designing. The context is king, and that's something that does not happen anymore. UX starts outside the product. It's not the product alone. I've explained that in the earlier slide, but that is important to kind of keep in mind that UX starts outside the product, and actually it ends outside the product too. The product is just an engagement part for the user experience design. There is going to be no screen soon. We've got to be ready for that. The screens are going to go away at some point of time, right? Like there is gestural, there is voice, there are going to be Alexas and Siris and the Googles driving our world. It's kind of getting closer and closer. There are user interfaces that are not the graphical user interface anymore. So we've got to get ready for it. We've got to kind of, how do we get ready? I do not know right now, but then it's good to kind of apply the basic idea of design thinking. And that's a good way to, like for example, really understand what the user wants and what the user needs are. So those has nothing to do with the screen. So right now we are unfortunately bound by that rectangle that is in front of us, whether we are holding it or whether it's in front of us, we are bound by that rectangle. That is going to break away pretty soon, right? And the last one is business is experience. It's important for you guys to think about how your product that you design or how the pages that you design fits into the larger angle of the business that you guys are working for, because that's what is the experience. People want to click on this stuff and eventually be converted. That's when your job is secure. That is something that you got to keep in mind, right? So it's not a silo. Eventually what I'm trying to say is that it is not one individual small thing you kind of hide in one table, do it and put it out and you're done. No, it's not. It's connected in a big way bigger than what you think it is. And with that, I'm done with the presentation. Thank you. That's my blog and my Instagram and my LinkedIn. Take a look at it when you guys.